Hello. We need to meet up.
Yes. I can find out what you want me to do.
Yeah.
I've never written a blog before.
Maybe we could talk tomorrow sometime. Would that work?
Sure, whenever.
Okay. Greetings. We can't hear you, Anne. You're muted.
Yeah, you're muted. There you go.
I wondered what she was doing to her. I went and got my hair all cut off. I couldn't stand it anymore.
Wow, I put it in ponytail.
I was letting it grow, and it was, you know, it didn't look that long when you saw me, but it was long, and I just couldn't stand it anymore. So I went back to short, and it's all curly. So I just blew it dry, and that's it.
It looks great.
Yeah, it does.
Thank you. It's cooler.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine is very hot.
I got
Yeah,
frustrated
yeah.
about a month ago with mine, and I let my husband cut it. So.
It looked fine, though. I can tell you it had your hair cut. I didn't realize your husband had cut it.
Yeah, isn't that good? I
He
trust
did a
him.
good job.
He was super impressed with himself.
Harvey always loved my hair short like this.
Yeah,
And
good.
I'd let it grow. And one day I went and I didn't tell him I was going to get it all cut off, and I did. And I walked in, he was watching TV, and he just looked up at me and said, "Thank you," and continued watching TV. I'll never forget that.
That's funny. My husband likes short hair also, and my father likes long hair. And I talked about at our wedding that I was going to, between the wedding and the reception, I was going to get my hair cut short, like make the transition and kind of come out. I waited a couple weeks. I did it later, but
Oh, that's funny.
I amused myself.
How long have you been married?
Welcome, everyone. 31 years.
Good. That's wonderful.
All right. I think we'll wait another, you know how we do. Another minute or two for people. Jeremy, did you go on vacation since I saw you last?
Yeah, for sure.
You've got a virtual background.
Yeah. Yeah, but
Good. Looks nice on you.
yeah, silliness.
Just give it like 2 more minutes. Actually, you know what? Let's do this. I made up this little poll. I'll give you a minute to think about completing the poll while we're waiting for a few more people to come in. And you can check more than one box. And there are 2 questions.
I forgot how we check boxes.
Let's see here. Jeremy, can you answer that? Because I can't do the poll. How?
You should have a window that popped up, and you just click on the.
Oh, I see. Okay, I clicked on where the little circle was. Okay.
Yeah, I just came from the garden.
Nice. How's it looking out there?
Great.
Great. We'll let you talk about that in a minute, if you're willing.
Sure.
About 20 more seconds, and then I'll show you what I see. Does anyone need more time? All right. Can you see it now? Give you a minute to look through it a little bit. So let's talk about this. Very informal conversation. Feel free to unmute yourself and pipe in at any time. Um, from my seat, Trifaith has been through a couple of transitions. One is that we started, more than a decade ago, 2006, in small groups of well-intentioned men, mostly, right? Coming together to dream about if this possibility of coming together on a shared land to bring these three faith institutions might be a good idea. There was a lot of economy behind that in terms of being able to acquire land. And there's also just a tremendous amount of heart. This big dream, incredible, audacious dream of what would it be like to all come together. And slowly, we transitioned the container to invite more and more leaders. And some of that was by choice. And some of it was by just natural turnover of leadership. So as spiritual leaders changed, as presidents of congregations changed, people like John Myers, who was a president of Temple Israel during all of this happening, was very, very engaged in Trifaith during his presidency, was a member of the Trifaith board, and is now spending a lot of his energy at the Jewish Federation of Omaha as a volunteer. And so he's still very much a supporter of this work, but there's room for others. And then as it became real and we needed dollars, we were able to bring in individually, each of the faith institutions were able to bring in talents and treasures to decide what their buildings were decide if their buildings were going to happen, to decide what their buildings were going to look like. So site committees and programming committees within the congregations, and certainly fundraisers. And then lots of people who financially contributed to raise $70 million. Did you realize that's the number we're at for the 4 buildings? Cost $70 million. A huge celebration is that the $70 million is raised, including all of the money for the Trifaith Center. We have raised the necessary funds. That doesn't mean we won't have additional capital needs for any of the buildings, but in order to move in to all 4 of the buildings, the dollars are raised for that. And now we're looking at operating. And all of that brings us to a place where Trifaith has from my seat, felt a little bit like it was owned and directed by a really small nucleus of people. And now it is this time where what it becomes is in the hands of the stakeholders, is in all of us. And we, our website, I think, for me, models that transition. Our old website, which I was very involved in helping to build, highlighted the bricks and mortar, what the buildings and the architecture and the fundraising for all of that looked like. And our new website is Faces of Tri-Faith. And people have asked me, we've gotten emails from across the country actually saying, are those stock images, meaning did you purchase the pictures, or are those actually pictures of people who are living this? All of the pictures on the website are of people who are doing this Tri-Faith experiment with us. And one of the joys is that, you know, as we've asked people, would you like your face to be a face of Tri-Faith? Overwhelmingly, people have said yes. And so how we take this conversation to the next place is, you are Tri-Faith, you're here, you showed up, right? That's you've passed the litmus test. People are asking, you know, do you have to be a member of a congregation to be part of Tri-Faith? No. Do we encourage that we want vibrant, healthy congregations as our partners? Yes. If that's part of your spiritual path and you find something in that affiliation, yes. We want to encourage involvement and keeping those congregations viable and sustainable and helping to fill your spiritual bucket. And Tri-Faith itself, you know, needs your time and your talent and your treasures. And so this is just intended to be we want you to continue to show up and increase your knowledge about Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, as well as other worldviews. And I'm curious to know your thoughts on that. And to have an opportunity to meet people whose path and spectrum of spiritual orientation looks different from you. And so that's something that everyone here said is a way that they want to show up. And there are some other opportunities. What I've said so far, how's that resonating or landing on any of you? What are your thoughts so far, and what do you want to talk about today?
First of all, I'd like to introduce myself. This is the very first time that I am attending this. I went into your website because we have communicated actually via email. My name is Graciela, and I am with Leadership Education with Neurodevelopmental and Related Disabilities. And hello, Karen. I know Karen, she's my good friend.
Nice.
Our program at the Monroe Meyer Institute, I am the Cultural Diversity Coordinator with that program. And last year, I brought a group of professionals to visit the 3 centers. And it was just an eye-opening for myself, for me, because none of them had ever visited a mosque or a synagogue. I take that back. 2 people had been to a synagogue before, but we were a large group. Okay. Mm-hmm. And I said, we've got to make this an intentional visit every year to bring professionals that are serving our communities to visit the centers and learn what is the perspective of people within each center, within each religious center. What is the perspective with people with disabilities? And this is why I wanted to be part of this group today, because I want to learn more about the whole initiative. To get people involved. The Monroe Meyer Institute has been in place for many, many years, but they have never gone this far to visit the community and learn from you guys, from this institution. So I just wanted to introduce myself, and I do want to be more active in this project, in this great experiment, like you called it.
Thank you. You know, I think, I'm gonna be honest. Mm-hmm. As a team, meaning particularly the staff and the board, we have a deep commitment to understanding the intersection of people's identity. Mm-hmm. And ableism is a factor when we look at diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yes.
Do I think it has been a priority of Tri-Faith and or any of our partner congregations or Omaha as a community? We have to honestly say no, right? There's, and if we've learned nothing from the last 3 weeks, we're learning that's the first thing we need to say, right? Is that we need to own up to what's not right yet in our work, and to learn how we can do it better. And the best way to do that is to listen to the voices of people who have that to teach us. I personally think, Karen, and I'm not calling you out to speak, but you're welcome to, as we've moved to a virtual environment, I have noticed that there's more accessibility, and that matters, and that we know we need to commit to stay in this lane, right? Even as we realize that there's a hybrid opportunity.
Right, because I'm not able to go to physical meetings very often. One, because I can't drive due to my medications. Two, because on any given day I can't commit to being somewhere because my body isn't very consistent in how it allows me to do things. And Graciela knows a lot of times I don't even show up to choir on Monday nights because I'm in bed. So, it's a problem in being able to be here virtually. I feel like I'm part of the community a little bit, even if it's behind a screen. And it helps, really helps.
It's been great. It's been great. Because we've spent lots of time together, in other decades, right? And so I've loved, catching up and hearing about Ben and knowing that you're going to be present.
Thank you. Yeah, I was sad that he wasn't able to really get involved with the Temple youth because of the difficulties with his autism. And then my own physical abilities were getting much more problematic even after his bar mitzvah. So it's been a sadness. But hopefully now that he's in adulthood, things will be a little bit easier with him.
Yeah.
And
So,
I'm
yes,
sorry.
go ahead.
And you're bringing a very good point, because these professionals, and we'll talk about that more as we get to know each other and meet with the rest of the team. But one of our goals is to create that those opportunities to be included within our religious centers of people with disabilities. And because these professionals that are part of our leadership program at MMI are psychologists, occupational therapists, physical therapists, you name it. It's an interdisciplinary program that want to really learn and develop a community and learning and leadership project to help the community at the same time that they are learning. And many times inclusion could be the main issue.
Right.
Many times it could be educating the rest of the congregations about specific issues with behaviors or special needs. But anyway, I am so glad to get to know you all and to be here today. Thank you.
I think that's a really interesting thing you're bringing up, is this opportunity for you to help lead us in understanding the community needs. And I would love to continue that conversation. And I know we've been going back and forth with, but the issue of being able to tour is complicated. We're certainly able to do virtual tours, and absolutely willing to do virtual meetings with your group. And if that meets your needs, we can schedule that. Until the numbers get to the low level, meaning not more than 5 new cases a day in Omaha, we won't be holding major events.
I totally understand that. Yeah.
We're a long way from that right now, too.
I know, but that's okay. But I wanted to plant that little seed of that partnership, of collaboration, to get to know each other. That is so important.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. What else that people saw on that poll sparks their attention as a way that they'd like to know more information about how to get more involved in that? And how can Jeremy or I answer your questions about that? Maybe Eileen, can I put you on the spot in the meantime? Can you tell us about your experience? You jumped in with 2 feet, 2 arms, head, heart,
Right.
to garden and orchard work. Tell us all about your experience so far.
Well, I had recently retired, so I was looking for something I could do to volunteer, something that I might have a passion for, that I got me outside and worked. And of course, the best thing came along was for the Tri-Faith Garden and Orchard. So I was like, okay, great, because last year I really wanted to participate, but I couldn't because I worked and I travel a lot when I was working. And so it just didn't fit my schedule very well. But now I have all this time and I was like, great. So I started working. We put 2 new big beds that we put different types of squashes and cucumbers and what else? Spinach is in there, and some pumpkins and watermelon. So just a variety of things. And what we first had to do was actually make the beds. So we had to put down cardboard and newspaper, because the only thing that was there was grass. So we had to make these and dig holes, lots of holes. I was good at digging holes, so I was happy to do that. Some other people, because we're all pretty much retired, so we're all old senior citizens, and a lot of us have trouble with our arthritis or shoulder pain, or, so it's kind of, you have to get around that and work with that. But so you find the job that works the best for you, and I like digging the holes. So I was like, I'll dig the holes, and then somebody else would fill it in with the good dirt and make sure it was just perfect for us to do the planting. So that was our first get together. And one of the wonderful things about working in the garden is you meet all kinds of people. And plus all the faiths are there, so you get to meet people in the different faiths. So, what better place for a tri-faith activity, than to get together and do those things. Right now, the garden, we had our 10th harvest on Tuesday. All of the produce that we pick and harvest goes to several different locations. So everything we grow is donated, which is great. So that helps the community to get produce, especially individuals who might not have access to that produce. So that's great. Then we have, besides that part of the garden, we have the orchard, which is on the other side. So we just finished putting new mulch down in all the pathways over there. And we started a pollination garden. So a bunch of us brought different plants from our houses, because you always have extra plants. So we brought different plants, and we put the pollination bed in. And then unfortunately we had some water problems. So then we had to pretend that we were engineers and engineer a solution so that we didn't have the plants all getting washed away when the rain came. So far we've been really good with what we did there. We dug a little trench and put some wire in it to help the water flow the other way. And so that has worked out well. So, that's another example where we kind of all worked together, and all the different faiths were there, and, we brainstormed about what we could do. And, that's just part of, getting together in these type of activities. And, so you have the camaraderie, plus you have, the good part that you're giving people food. So, you have work, and you can share and have a good time and tell stories, and at the same time, you're helping people. So that's been my experience.
Is there, how physically taxing is it? Is there a place, is there a place for it
Some
to
of
be
it,
or not be, or can you choose?
You can be as physical as you want, or we have other jobs like weeding. That's pretty easy. Just go around and look for weeds and pull them out. Today we did inspecting of all the squash to look for squash borers and any other diseases. So basically you're just sitting there looking at each of the leaves. That's pretty easy. So there's always, tasks or other things that are, fairly easy. And then we have the harder tasks like Bonnie was putting up some fencing because we had some rabbits that decided they liked the turnip leaves. So we had to, keep them from
Sure.
eating our leaves. So,
And-
there's all
and-
kinds of jobs.
And what about if you've never been before? Like, tell us.
Well, we have a few people that have never gardened before. And they're basically there to learn about gardening and see what gardening's all about. And so Bonnie mainly leads everything. So she'll give them something easy at first, like here, plant these carrot seeds. And, she'll tell you this is how deep you have to plant them. And this
That's
is
how far she trusted me.
right.
I planted the beans.
Right, walk through that and so you can get to see, and then every week you come back, you can see, oh look, now they're this big. Oh look, now they're this big, and so that's always fun. And one of the other things I do is take pictures. So every week we'll post the different pictures so you can see how big everything's getting and what our crop. Yeah, on Tuesday we had 6 pounds. We had radishes, Swiss chard, and peas. So we had 6 pounds to give, which is a lot. It was a lot of food.
Eileen, who do you donate them to? You said it was donated. What organizations?
There's the interfaith church. A lot of it goes over there, and then
You mean to Clare Church, right?
what?
Clare Church?
The church.
It's a
on,
Methodist church.
Friday, tomorrow, we're going to harvest for the church, which we'll have Saturday. They have their food pantry.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's for Countryside Church.
Yeah, Countryside.
So that's once a month.
Right. And then there's the Jewish,
The Chabad House.
the Chabad House. And then there's,
The Intercultural Senior Center.
the Cultural
in South
Senior
Omaha.
Center.
And Clare Methodist, which is a Methodist church in North Omaha.
So
That
we
has a
have a
pantry.
list, and we only harvest if we have someplace to take it, because it doesn't make sense to harvest it and hold it because it doesn't last. Like in the beginning of the season, they were harvesting spinach and salad greens and collard greens, and so the first cold, and so those don't last long. You have to kind of pick them and basically eat them in a short period of time. Now we have things that last a little longer, but still we like to pick them and have them taken right away to one of the locations. So
Does anyone else have any questions for Eileen? I did post the Sign Up Genius in the chat. So if you would like to go check it out, meet some new people, sign up for a time, and where it's Tuesdays and Thursdays and every other Sunday.
yes. And even if you just want to come out and see, you can come and Bonnie will take you on the tour, because today
Right.
we had Nate came and Dan came.
Great, Dan, the president of Temple and the executive director.
What time do you meet Tuesdays and Thursdays?
Yep, Tuesdays and Thursdays
The time,
At 9, is that
at
right?
9.
9 a.m.?
Yeah, there's usually someone. Bonnie comes a little early, and so do I. But by 9, there'll definitely be somebody there, and usually there's someone there until 11:30, 12.
And that sign up is also in your website?
It's on Facebook and the website, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, and please bring others. I do want to say that we have a very strict rule that you need to wear a mask and respect social distancing. Okay.
Good.
Yes. So tell me, what else would you like to know about? Not just the garden. There were other things on the list. The grand opening, being a docent or a speakers bureau.
The docent. Can you talk a little bit about the docent?
Sure. So right now when we give tours of the Tri-Faith Center or any of the faith institutions, we have an individual tour guide. So we would make arrangements and you could go, let's say you started at 11 at Temple and then you spent a half an hour there. There are people from Temple who have been trained to give a tour of Temple. We have a slide deck that you can train up on what the things to tell about as you walk through the Temple building. I'm going to unmute everyone so that we have less background noise. And then Countryside also has trained docents. So Temple has about 20 people who have trained to be docents, and Countryside has about 40. Imam Jamal and Naima give most of the tours at AMI, but we're in the process of working with a new volunteer to create a docent program at AMI, and then also one for the Tri-Faith Center, that we realize the Tri-Faith Center was built to be a welcome center so that when groups come, they'll, once it opens, which we'll get the certificate of occupancy on July 17th. So by the end of July, we'll start to do some work from there. We'd like to train a cohort of people who learn how to do a tour between all 4 of the buildings. And we anticipate that that will be a relatively big expectation of people to be able to make sure they have a baseline of religious literacy, to be able to answer some of the frequently asked questions about the faiths, and then also to be able to walk with a group between each of the faith buildings. It's not to say that we wouldn't appreciate that people come because they want to have the experience of meeting someone of that faith. And so perhaps then we'll still have some people meet us at the buildings, but we would like to have a cohort of people who train up to learn how to be able to give those tours. And we're working on a curriculum for that. So if there's anyone who would like to help us work on that, project team is just forming, and we have 3 people on it so far, 1 from each of the faith groups. Similarly, we're starting a speakers bureau. That's a group that will go out into the community. So historically, that task has been staff or clergy or board members that have gone to like Rotary groups and Kiwanis Club and schools and etc. Leadership Omaha. And we'd like that people feel empowered to be that voice to go into the community and talk about the work that we're doing. And so working on a curriculum to train people up on that as well. Those will work together. Is that the information you're looking at? We do, in non-COVID world, get more than weekly requests for both tours and public engagements of speaking. Those groups aren't meeting in the same capacities that they had been, and so it gives us a little bit of time to get our ducks in a row.
You mentioned that July 17th is the day that you're expecting the certificate of occupancy for the new building, right? Mm-hmm. So does that mean that people, it's going to be open to the public that day or not yet?
No. So we're going to have a soft opening. Okay. I think I learned this morning that the desks and chairs for the office staff will be delivered the 3rd week in July. So, or 4th week in July. So, also, we're still working remotely and not ready to kind of make that transition. I think some of the staff will start working in the building in early August, but they'll have a choice about that. And then our grand opening is going to be in October. We currently had the day of October 24th, but I think we might be moving it to October 17th. If you want to know the background story, just because the drama is always interesting, right? Is that we picked October 24th because it was an away Husker football game, but we would have preferred to have it on a day with no Husker football game. But the Exarban Ball was on the only date that Nebraska had a bye, except they canceled the Exarban Ball yesterday and moved it to some other date. And so we're talking about moving our event to October 17th, since there won't be that conflict. But you know, when we do any kind of calendaring, we have a lot of voices in our choir. So we're, you know, checking all the different calendaring systems and making sure that the people who need to be available would be available. And we'll be sending a save the date out in the coming weeks when we finalize that date. The grand opening will still be a virtual event, that we don't have confidence in October being something that we can bring hundreds of people together. And we anticipate that hundreds, if not 1,000 people would want to come and celebrate this milestone. So the entire event will take place online. We had hoped to call that event Dinner in Abraham's Tent, because we had had events called that previously, but it won't be a dinner in a tent. So this event will not be Dinner in Abraham's Tent. It will be something else. And hopefully we'll revive Dinner in Abraham's Tent after we've all had vaccinations. What other questions do you have? In terms of, if you're interested in helping us with the plans for that grand opening event, certainly there's lots of energy around that in terms of encouraging people to attend and planning what it will look like. And if you'd like more information about that, you know, send me a little private message and I'll make sure to include you. Let's see what we haven't talked about. Oh, I have another poll. Let's try this. Stop sharing this one. And poll. Oh, sorry. Number 2. All right. So here's a new poll for you.
This one you can only pick one, though, it looks like.
Oh, I guess I did it wrong. So this one you can only pick one. So pick your first choice and we can talk about it and add more flavors. Even if you don't want to contribute as a volunteer, if you would want to see Tri-Faith have a public voice in that, you are certainly welcome to use that as no one's going to hold you accountable to this very official poll that we're doing right here. I think you have to push submit. So I don't see any answers. Has anyone submitted?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. I did.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to push end and see what happens. I'm going to relaunch it. Let's try it one more time. I'm sorry. We try it again. Can somebody just do it so that I can see if it goes through? You did? It's not working. Okay, let's just talk about it. Technology. What gets your attention? What do you want to get my attention with?
I picked the very first one, religious diversity and inclusion.
Me too.
That's what I picked.
What does that mean to both of you?
When it comes to people with disabilities, I am also the parent of a young adult with a developmental disability. There is a lot of, and I also work with lots of families throughout the state. I always encounter those issues that families face, challenges, where they feel their children, their young adults don't feel welcome in religious centers. So this is why I picked that one right away. And it's not that they don't want to be accepted by the religious centers, but I think that there is a lack of understanding and education on how to include. And not just people with disabilities. I mean, there's so many things that are nowadays as part of diversity. You mentioned that, Wendy. And I think that we could be doing more in general throughout the state, not just in tri-faith, but everywhere. There's so much education needed.
And I would just say, based on my life experiences, since I'm a lesbian and married and have a son, I know that a lot of the people that I'm friendly with are not really involved in a church or in a synagogue because they don't feel welcome. So that type of welcoming and diversity, I know the temple is very welcoming. And I know the church is because my wife belongs to the church and I belong to the temple. So, you know, just getting the word out and talking to people to show them that, you know, there are places that are welcoming and friendly and that you can feel comfortable at. And Omaha, well, Nebraska is not a very diverse period place. So getting those individuals of color to feel more welcome and just in our area in particular. I grew up in New Jersey, and so it was very diverse where I grew up. I got to see racial riots out of my 5th grade window. So I've had a lot of experience, good or bad, with that type of diversity and people who have not felt like they are really welcome. So anything, like you said, Wendy, that we can do to encourage people and let them know that please come, you know, that they are welcome, because there's way too much hate out there right now. So
And
that's what it means to me, Jeremy.
Speaking to Graciela's point about educating and how to teach people to make others welcome is something I noted with dealing with Ben, that even with Friedel and even Temple, that if the only way he could have joined in is if he was able to do it in a normal fashion, that if there wasn't any way to include him because there wasn't the training and staff, whatever. And that's something I was told explicitly as well. Because there was no training, I would have to be there with them. But as any parent knows, your child always acts different around you than around strangers, you know. So it would have totally defeated the purpose, you know, for him to be there if I was as well, because he's not learning from other people and socializing in a normal way outside of the parental role, child role. So yeah, education would help.
I chose religious freedom, and I can't remember what the rest of that was. Religious freedom and what?
Was it inclusion, I think, or religious? Just the first one, right?
It was the second one.
Oh, okay. I picked the first one, I think. So
I think, and the
Religious
reason
freedom and belief.
and beliefs. And again, the last two speakers were speaking from personal experience, and having grown up Episcopalian, and then now I'm a member of Temple. And my parents were okay with it. I think that it's important, and for some reason, some people it's not important. But a lot of people, it's very important that their children maintain the same beliefs that they do. And that's not always going to happen, because it can't. And I knew from the time I was very, very young, and I can't tell you how young, but extremely young, that I did not believe in the miracles of Christianity. So, you know, but I was in an Episcopalian family. And when I mean young, I'm talking about, you know, before I even was probably in high school. So it's not like you can all of a sudden, I'm not articulating very well. But I think that it's important that we look into this, that it's not the end of the world if one of our children decides they want something else. And I know for some people, it is almost the end of the world, because their whole belief system is so important to them that if their child's is different, then that's just a terrible thing. And it's not. Because
Thank you for sharing.
basically, Abraham's tent, you know?
Love wins.
It does. It does.
Yeah. How about anyone we haven't heard from? Have anything to share on this? You're muted. Here. Now you can
Good
talk.
job. Did you hear me?
I hear you now. I love
Good
when you
job.
send me those nice notes too.
You deserve more than that.
Oh, you're sweet. Yeah, what does this conversation bring up for you?
Getting to know where we stand. I love trifaith. I would like to contribute. My ancestral city, if you don't know it, is based on Abraham's hospitality, Aleppo. So I'm gonna send you a small notes about how dear to me this organization is. I lived in the Middle East for 17 years. I was raised to know that the Jewish is part of our identity, Judaism, but I never met any Jew until I left the Middle East, unfortunately. And in Omaha, it was the first time that I met a rabbi. So it's really very looking forward. It's part of my missing identity. I hope to prepare a small note about that, but I really congratulate you. You have all my support.
Thank you for being here and for everything that you show up at. We appreciate it.
You know, you deserve more, as I said. And we have the perception that Syria is in turmoil and all of that, but there is another story to it, and I hope to prepare a presentation about that. I'm going to call it My Syria. The way I was raised in Syria, it was much more peaceful times. And Aleppo is also where the Codex was. You know what the Codex is, right? So there is a lot of beautiful, positive things about the Middle East that we would like to promote. The latest thing that I would like to mention is that there is a tendency now between the Arab world and the Jewish state Israel of welcoming. So the Gulf states, some of them are sending messages to Israel, welcome back. It may upset some Palestinians because they feel that they are abandoned. I hope it's not the case, but I really welcome this initiative. And in Venezuela, also, the Jewish participation in the history is remarkable, highly valuable. And even though apparently we are labeled as leftist, terrorist, all what you want between Syria and Venezuela, but there are a lot of welcoming signs to encourage Judaism, the Jewish community, to be welcome in both countries. So I would like to be able to expose that at one time. But you are part of my missing personality that I encounter in Omaha. It's a very nice one.
Thank you.
I better stop here to give everybody some time.
How about you, Gary? We didn't hear from you. What are you thinking about?
Oh, I completely agree with him. You deserve a lot of credit. I was so glad you got the job as executive director. And
Me too.
yeah, I try to get to Tri-Faith whenever I can. I've been there for a lot of events, and Neighbor to Neighbor, Taste of Tri-Faith, the Faith Over Fear conference. And I teach world religions at Clarkson College, and so I feel like I'm an unofficial ambassador for Tri-Faith because I always recommend it to students. We encourage them to take a field trip to a place of worship, you know, different than what they grew up in, and it's very intimidating to a lot of these younger people. But a number have come to Tri-Faith and to the mosque and to the synagogue, and I don't think anyone's gone to Countryside. Most people there are Christian, but they have wonderful experiences and they write about it. And I know one student came to the synagogue, and she's from a small town in Iowa, and she got there early and people gave her a tour, and she was able to help open the Torah, and so she felt really involved, and it was just a big event in her life, I could tell. So it's just a wonderful thing that's going on there, and I would love to get more involved, like maybe be a docent and just help out in any way I can. I keep thinking I'm going to become a bridge builder or do something, and I haven't, but I'm going to commit now publicly.
All right.
Yeah, get my name on the roll.
Our work here's done for the day.
So anyway, but yeah, I just enjoy
Beautiful.
everything. Even the virtual events, I attended the John and the Emir last week. Jeremy hosted that, and it was a great hour. You know, you hear those things and you're just filled with ideas and thoughts, and you're just invigorated, and you just think, man, it's so wonderful to have this right here in Omaha. So
Yeah,
so
that was a great event. It was I don't know if everyone was there, but I'm just fascinated with the questions that were being asked in the year 800, right? And about, you know, interfaith dialogue. In the same way that I think about the questions that were being asked in the 1950s about race and how little progress we've made. So, you know, how can we expect the most of ourselves? I think in every situation, it's about showing up. Right. And I'm sure that if you haven't heard me say this before, it's something I say really often. My father's mantra was watch the pennies and the dollars will fall. And he's very invested in, you know, the economy, and that's, you know, how he's a businessman. That's how his brain works. And I think when we're looking at social change in any of the context that we've talked about today in Tri-Faith, watch the pennies and the dollars will fall, meaning show up every time to give some teeny little millimeter, right, of motion towards hearing someone else's narrative, opening your heart to someone's story that is not your story. So, you know, today we heard, you know, stories about the intersection of politics and race and ableism and gender orientation. that, you know, all of these stories together are so complicated for us to think about making change on. But when we each do some teeny little part each day, even by educating ourselves or for showing up with good intentions, we're changing the world. So thank you for being here. I give a moment for anyone who has any last thoughts, but I also want to let you know that July is an incredible lineup for this Thursday session. We're going to do a series telling our founding stories. And I happen to know all of the folks who are going to be with us each week, and the really different perspectives. To be able to hear from Shaquille Ahmed, as an example, is a member of the Muslim community who was intricately involved in the development of AMI, and he doesn't live in Omaha anymore, and he hasn't been able to be a part of our work for a long time, and his heart is still so present with us. So, you know, how cool to be able to hear from Tim Anderson from the Episcopal Diocese, who too was an incredible national leader and ambassador for the work that we're doing. And because the diocese didn't end up to be a partner, you know, with a building, his role changed, and yet his heart is just so with us. And so I really think those July series, if you can help, one of the ways to volunteer, right, is to bring a friend. And I know many of you show up every time, but if you could just talk someone's ear off or register them for them and tell them I sent you a Zoom link. You should really show up. It doesn't cost anything. It would be a good lunch break for you. So that's my challenge to you. Is to help be a program ambassador and help us get a few more bodies here for those July events, because I really think if people hear the hearts that are around these stories that got us to today, they'll keep showing up for more. And thank you for being here. Yes.
Just quickly, can we receive these invitations via email so we can just forward it?
Yes. Are you getting our newsletter?
No.
Okay, so I have your email. I'll add you to the newsletter as soon as we hang up.
Please, because it's much easier for me to open my computer and then just start forwarding it to people.
Yes, so we send out a newsletter every Thursday. So, and I'll forward today's newsletter and to you, and I'll add you to the list.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure meeting you all.
I'm so glad you were here.
Thank you.
Thanks, have a great day.
Thanks, Wendy. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye, Graciela.
Hi, Karen.
Ben says
I'm
hi
glad
to
you came,
Nadal.
Graciela. It was good to meet you.
Nice meeting you too. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.